Hi, Julia. It's so nice meeting you. Warm welcome to our viewers to this interview. And I have to say how excited I am to be the one who's conducting this interview. I was so honored when they offered.
Thank you.
Because you don't get every day, to interview one of your favorite authors, especially when you're a book blogger from Romania and you are a world-known author and with a lot of books, and now with a Netflix series, which I watched over Christmas.
Me too.
Yeah, you and other, 20 million people.
It still blows my mind.
Yes. Let me show you some of your Romanian covers.
I know, I love them.
Yeah.
I love them.
This, where's my favorite? My favorite is this one. It's Francesca's story.
Yeah. So those covers are the same as the ones we have in the United States now.
Oh, fabulous.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Just obviously with Romanian work.
Yeah, they're lovely. They're absolutely lovely. So you studied art history at Harvard. You went to medical school. It's wonderful to be able to debunk some myths about the romance writer, because sometimes people have, I don't know if in the US, but in other parts of the world, the romance writer is, like a stay-at-home mom who has all sorts of fantasies and she writes them down. But you're not that type. You have studies,
But there's nothing wrong with that either. I mean, I just want to make it clear, like there are lots of amazing writers who started as stay-at-home moms. That's how Nora Roberts got started. She's the most popular author in the world, basically. But for me, no, I did go to Harvard. I studied art history. And then at the end of my time there, I decided I wanted to be a doctor. So I started doing more science, and I had to do all my science classes after I graduated because I hadn't done them while I was there. And so while I was doing that, I also really started writing my first book and was doing that all at the same time. And it all kind of came together at the same time. I got into medical school. The same month I got my book deal, and it was crazy. And I ended up putting off medical school for a couple years while I wrote. And then I panicked because all of my friends were going to graduate school. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm not qualified to do anything. So I went to medical school, but only for a few months.
But you were qualified. You were qualified to write wonderful books. Can you tell us more about your first book? Was it a historical romance as well?
Yeah, so the first book I had published is called Splendid. I don't think it has been published in Romania. I could check. I don't think so. And that one was, it's funny when you read people's first books, a lot of times, like if you go back to mine, at least, it's not as polished as my current books, but I think there's kind of an excitement and an exuberance in it, where people are writing these first books and we have no idea what we're doing. So we're just kind of having so much fun. And I think you can really feel the fun I was having with it, but it's about an American who goes to England to stay with her cousins, and she gets frustrated. She gets mistaken for a maid, and that's how she saves like a little boy from getting run over by a carriage. And then she meets a duke, and so it's just lots of fun.
I have to look that up. I'll buy it on Amazon. Maybe I can find the ebook.
Yeah. Oh, well, you can definitely get the ebook, but do you read in English as well?
Yes, I'm a translator, so I translate books.
Well, you're sad.
Yeah. I'll ask Litera to, buy this book, and they will give it to me to translate.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. One of my good friends here in Seattle is actually from Romania, but she's lived here for a really long time, and she's now a writer, but she writes in English, which I think is fascinating that she chooses to write in English.
So you only write historical romance, particularly set in the Regency era.
Yes, yeah. I've done a few that are set a little bit earlier than the Regency, but it's still roughly the similar time period.
What is it about this period that attracts you, since you were you studied history? So,
well, it's not about the art, but I like it because it's far enough in the past that we get a certain fairy tale quality to it. We can have, we can let our imaginations run a little bit wilder. We can give it it's sort of a little bit fabled, whatever, but it's near close enough to us that people behaved in ways that are fundamentally understandable to us. So I like to use medieval times as a contrast. During medieval times, there was a religiosity and a spirituality to everyday life that we just don't have anymore, a certain mysticism. And so people behaved in very different ways. I mean, just the way that the human thought about their existence in life was so fundamentally different. And so the Regency and the time near that is like this really nice sweet spot in between, where you have like your little fairy tale aspect, but you've got people behaving in ways we get. And then more specifically to me, it's a time period known for, the witty dialogue and the fast-paced stuff, which is just very good for my particular writing skills.
Yes. Let's talk about the historical accuracy police. Do you deal with it often? Do you remember if you ever got anything wrong and they caught you, or?
Oh, I get caught all the time.
What is it that they police you about?
Well, it used to be they would just police me for being kind of modern in tone, which is probably true. Funny thing is, nowadays, what I get dinged on the most are mistakes I have made against my own world. So not the actual historical record, but things I've put in my books and then I mess up against like my own people. And people.
Do you have an example, or can you share it?
Sure. So here's the perfect example. I have a book called Just Like Heaven. And that is the first book in the Smythe-Smith Quartet. It's about these cousins who do this terrible, terrible concert every year. Anyway, in this book, as I was writing it, somebody was trying to describe another person, and they were saying, oh, you know who I'm talking about. His wife's cousins, friends, daughters, we all describe people that way, where we have this long list of connections. So I put this thing in there, and people who read my books would know that I was talking about Colin Bridgerton. And it would be like this really fun thing, and if you haven't read my books, then it's meaningless, okay? He's not mentioned by name, it doesn't matter. But for people who read the books, it's this cute thing, oh, she's talking about Colin, isn't that fun? And so then, but for this to work, Colin's married, okay? But then at the end of the book, I have somebody talking to Colin, and he's not married. Okay, so here's the thing. So if you've only read this book, there's nothing that's incorrect, because he's not mentioned by name at the beginning, okay? You would have to know who he was. Well, but if you've read all my books, then you notice there's something wrong. Okay, so I got it wrong. I didn't notice it. My editor didn't notice it. My copy editor didn't notice it. My sister didn't notice it. I heard from readers 3 hours after the book went on sale.
Wow, you really have big fans.
I know. It's like, what? And so you're kind of kicking yourself, but at the same time, you just have to be happy that people care that much.
Yes, because they love you, and they love your whole universe of characters, and they have read all of them, so that they are able to spot this. So yeah, it's really funny. I'm writing a romance now, and when I get to the sex scenes, I cannot write them. I feel like laughing, or just they seem wrong. And I'm embarrassed that my parents or, my daughter, when she grows up, might read it. Are you ever worried, or are you ever embarrassed that, someone in your family or close friends will read them and, make fun of you?
No, I think maybe just I've been doing it for so long, or maybe because I knew that when I first started writing, I'm just thinking like the most embarrassing would be my mother, but she had read romance novels. So it wasn't like it was going to be this huge surprise. I don't know. I guess I'm just
Yeah, it's another thing when you read a romance written by someone else than your daughter.
I know, I guess just for me, I know so many romance authors just because I do that. I've just gotten to the point where like, it just doesn't even faze me. Like it feels like everybody I know writes intimate scenes, and like, I don't even think about that when I'm talking to them anymore. So for me, I'm over it. But I get it. I mean, I get where people would be weirded out a little.
Yeah. Well, you have 8 nominations to Rita Awards. Am I right? Did I count them correctly? Were they 8 and 3 times a winner?
Definitely 3 times a winner. I can't remember the nominations, but 8 sounds about right. Yes.
Do you ever read the novels that win when you're also nominated, when you're not the winner, obviously? Do you have to check on them?
Yeah, well, often I'll have read them before they win. Like I will often, if I'm nominated, I will try to read all the books in the collection, and also just the books that are finalists are usually very good. So yeah, I've often read the winners. And are you going to ask me what I thought? I don't remember. No. Okay.
Is Rita a live event? Like you go there in a nice dress and you have to deliver a speech?
Yeah. I mean, the 3 times I won, I was there in person. Yes.
What do you normally say in your speeches? Who do you thank? Or, how people say thank you for everything?
Well, always my editor and my agent, and then usually my family. I try to keep it short because some people are up there and they go on a really long time. Yeah, it's just.
Do you prepare a speech in advance or do you improvise?
A little of both. The first time I won, I actually just got up there and I laughed because it was for On the Way to the Wedding, which was the final Bridgerton book. And that book had when it came out, it got an interesting reception. I mean, lots of people loved it, but some people, I don't know what they were expecting of the last Bridgerton book. And, this one well-known reviewer called it the worst and most disappointing book of the year, which was kind of funny. I know. And I was like, really? Like, okay, maybe the most disappointing just because you were expecting something else, but I'm pretty positive it's not the worst.
Yeah, anyway, definitely.
So then it won this award and I was just laughing. It was so funny.
Do you get upset when you read negative reviews?
No, because again, a lot of it is just, I've been in this a while. I'm used to it. Sometimes I get upset when they make it personal. And there have been some reviews that really, not have attacked me. And it's weird,
That's horrible.
Yeah. And if you're going to say that the writing's terrible, you don't like the book, I can handle that. I mean, I can handle it when you attack me too, but I just don't like it. But sometimes, people will make personal attacks and that's hard. And now that I have such a higher profile because of the show, I think a lot of people online don't understand that when they say these terrible things, they are attacking a real person,
Exactly. Yeah, because online, everything seems like everyone is just, like a name on social media, but behind that is a real person.
Yeah, exactly.
And I assume you and Sondra Rhimes also got a lot of backlash because, of the diverse casting and all sorts of scenes and things that were not particularly exactly like in the book.
It's actually been overwhelmingly supportive. When the casting was announced, there were a few loud voices who were angry about the diversity of the casting. I think it's wonderful. I love it. And I'm so grateful that there's this large group of people working on it who's helped to expand my world into something that is more colorful and more inclusive and more diverse. And I think that they did it better than I could have on my own. Because I'm one person, I've got my imagination, I've got the experiences I've had in life, I've got the skin I'm in. I can do so much. But when you bring in, a writer's room with 12, 16 people, and they are incredibly diverse, both in, in terms of gender and sexual orientation and race and religion, and they can all bring in pieces of their own experience to expand the story in another way. And then plus also it's a visual medium, which mine isn't. And you can just do a lot more. And I think it's wonderful. And I think that, to all the people who were, the historical accuracy police, I feel like I have to remind them, there is an element of fantasy to historical romance anyway. If you read a lot of historical romance novels, you'd think there are hundreds and hundreds of really good looking men who are in their late 20s with titles, who are not married yet, who have all their teeth and don't have syphilis. I mean, that's just not true. And
exactly.
So if you can believe that you've got all these like amazingly hot guys running around just looking to get married, then you can believe that one of them has darker skin. I have no problem with that. And I think, something that I'm coming to realize as I get older, as I have more experience, as the world changes, this is not just me, that we need more representation in everything, that how important it is that everyone can see themselves in the story and in the story with the happy ending. Romance is all about the happy endings. And yes. I want everybody to be able to see themselves in the happy ending. And, that may not be something that I can do myself in my books as well as somebody else can. So I've been working very hard to help promote a lot of authors of color who are doing great books with characters of color, because I think they can tell those stories better than I can. Maybe I'll try sometime, but unless I can do it well, we'll see. And then, with this whole massive group of people working on the show all together, then, they can bring this story to life in a way that I can't do on my own either. And I think it's amazing and wonderful.
Yes, and it turned out wonderful. And we were all very visually pleased with how the cast turned out.
Oh, it's amazing.
And I will say no more.
Did you see the little clip of season 2?
Yes, I did.
So good. I'm so excited.
Yeah. And I'm looking forward to it, but not this Christmas.
No,
maybe later, right?
There isn't an official date. They're saying spring. So I promise you, there are some things I know I'm not allowed to say, but the premiere date is not one of them.
As good as Christmas.
Yeah, no, it won't be that. I know for a fact there will not be a big Christmas surprise. It will not be out Christmas. They're saying spring, but I don't know when in spring.
Well, whenever it comes, it will be great. We were talking about On the Way to the Wedding, that it won the Rita Award. Why do you think it was this one of all the novels?
I don't know. It could have been what else was out that year. You're in comparison to everything else. It could have been something that they just sort of felt like, oh, it's the last of the Bridgerton books, we should finally give her an award.
Because she tried so much year after year.
Yeah, because it's like she's lost so many times. Maybe it's her turn. I don't know. I like that book a lot. I think it's a fun book.
Yes, it was lovely. But still, Francesca's story is still my favorite.
For a lot of
people, she was such a strong woman. You actually like strong women in your books, and I like the way you portray them. Do you think your characters are a bit too modern for that era?
I think it's a balance. I think there have been strong women all throughout history. And the trick when you're writing historical romance or anything historical is figuring out a way to make them strong within the strictures of their time. For example, someone like Eloise, who would love to get an education, she's fighting her battles her own way for education. She's not at that point going to, march up to Oxford and demand to be let in. It's too early. If she were born 60 years later, maybe she would, but it wouldn't even occur to her to do that. So you have to figure out, how do you make people strong within the boundaries or what life was then? So I guess realistically strong. And I don't think, there's anything, if you look at what Francesca is working for and what she is trying to do and the decisions she makes, it all makes sense within her time period. The way that she's trying to take hold of her own destiny. But it's interesting that's your favorite book, because that one's really a little bit different for me. And it's for people, it's so frequently it's either their favorite or their least favorite.
Yes. I was touched by little Simon's struggles with a speech impediment, or, Francesca's infertility issues, or by the way the Bridgertons raised their children in kindness and respect. Your books, they tackle so many issues related to personal growth or to family relationships. Did you intend to educate people on some of these issues, or they just popped up while you were writing and seemed to fit within the story?
No, I mean, it is intentional. I don't know that I intend to educate people, but I wanted to include them because these are things that happen. And I've always been very interested in taking these more serious issues and figuring out a way to incorporate them in a story that is inherently happy and also has usually a light and funny tone.
Yes.
So the books themselves are not super angsty, but you've got these moments. And so I think that it gives the books kind of a almost subversive depth to it. Like you go in there and you're thinking that it's just this light, funny, romantic comedy, but you've got these little bits of real pathos in there that people deal with. And it's usually, things that I have either experienced myself in life or I've seen other people experience. I do not have a speech impediment, but I met somebody who did. And it was just really fascinating to me, the ways that it can affect you. With infertility, I have experienced it, and I know so many other people who have as well. It's I feel important to tell everybody, like, it all worked out, I'm fine. But but I just, I know the feeling of miscarriage, and it can be devastating. And so I just thought, okay, well, can we work these things in and show that these terrible things happen to good people, and let's see how they can overcome them and how they can get past them.
Humor, it's also everywhere in your books. Most of your heroines are funny and smart and always have a good comeback. Is the sense of humor an important trait for your characters?
Oh my gosh, yes. I'm just not interested in writing about people who don't have a sense of humor. It's at least not as main characters. I've got some people asked me to write a book about Daisy Smythe-Smith, who is, she's one of the Smythe-Smith cousins, and she's a secondary character in a lot of books, and she just has no sense of humor. And I'm thinking, I couldn't possibly write a book about her. She doesn't get anything. She takes herself way too seriously. So there will not be a book about Daisy. She's just not funny enough.
Do you ever feel, or have you ever felt that you're not being taken seriously as a romance writer?
Well, not anymore.
Well,
it depends on what you're looking for. I was never out there thinking like, oh, I'm not being taken seriously because I'm not getting reviewed in the New York Times. So, it depends on what you're looking for. There's certain things that I didn't necessarily expect, or I didn't need to feel that I was being taken seriously. For the most part, no, I do feel that I am taken seriously, for the genre and profession I have chosen, for the things that are appropriate for, because I write commercial fiction. I don't write literary fiction. It is a different thing, and there are different things. Occasionally you get a little dig. I get, now with Netflix, the Netflix show, everyone's always referring to it as, Netflix's raunchiest show. And I'm like, please. It just is, but I'm okay. I'm pretty happy with where I'm at right now.
As I was saying, I'm currently trying to write a romance. Mm-hmm. Do you have any advice for me as a beginner writer?
Well, I have to ask, are you writing in English or Romanian?
In Romanian.
Romanian. Okay. Not that actually has anything to do with my answer, but I was just curious. I think that, unfortunately, the biggest piece of advice is that you actually have to write the book. And I always tell people, if I could figure out how to actually get a book done without writing it, I would have figured that out. I think the most important advice really is to remember that there's no one correct way to do it. And I have friends who they sit down and start writing. I have friends who write such a detailed outline you couldn't believe. I'm somewhere in between. I'm somebody who has to work out the characters first. I have other friends who need the plot. And I write mostly in order from beginning to end, but I know people who skip around, and then occasionally I skip around. So I think that's just the important thing, is to remind yourself that the right way to do it is the way that eventually works for you. And it may take you a while to figure that out, but it's important to get that, because otherwise, you'll be constantly beating yourself up about it. You'll hear, oh, wait, that's how to do it. That's how she did it. Oh, I'm doing it wrong. And probably you're not. You're probably just figuring out what works for you.
That's a great piece of advice. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
In the end, I would like to ask you if you could, send a message to your Romanian readers.
Sure. And I would also, this is also going to Moldova too, right?
Yes, I think so.
I want to say hi to them too, because I've been researching my roots, and my great-great-grandparents came from Moldova. So
wow, that's fabulous.
I think, yeah. So I definitely want to say hi, and maybe Romania as well, because the borders move around so much, you can never tell where everybody was from. But yeah, no, definitely from, is it pronounced Chisinau? Chisinau, the capital of Moldova?
Chisinau.
Chisinau. Yeah,
you're close enough.
Chisinau, yes. So from Chisinau. I just want to say how excited I am that so many people around the world are reading the books. It's incredible to me, and it's still one of the things that delights me the most is when I see the foreign editions, and I'm just thinking, oh my gosh, how is this possible? Or when they send me them in the mail and I get them and I look at them, I'm like, and sometimes it's fun. You get them and you don't know what language it is. You're like, what language is this? What book is this? And it's so thrilling to me. So I'm just so happy that the books are touching a chord with people all over the world. So thank you. And I hope that someday I can come visit. I would love to visit.
That would be fabulous. Yeah, someday we will invite you to come over for our largest book fair. You'll do a lot of book signings, definitely.
Oh, that would be amazing. I love to travel, and COVID has put a big dent in that. So I'm very excited for everybody to get their vaccinations. Let's get this done. Let's get traveling again. Let's do this.
I agree. Thank you. It has been great talking to you, and finding out so much information about the universe of your characters. And also thank you for the advice. I will go on writing, and if something comes up, then it's fine. If not, also fine.
And how do I thank you in Romanian?
Mulțumesc.
Mulțumesc?
Yes.
Okay.
See, your roots are there because you're pronouncing very well.
That's very nice of you to say that.
Okay. Thank you again. See you. Bye.
Bye.